They say it takes two to make a thing go right, and it takes two to make it out of sight. It takes two to make a bill a law. So on the left we'll see there the Senate, part of the Capitol, and on the right is the House portion. Both of these organizations have to approve a bill and often work together to work out the kinks before they can pass it on to the president for signing into law. There are some distinct differences between the powers of the House and the Senate. The most significant is probably the House of Representatives has to start any bill that is going to raise taxes on the American people. And this is significant in that recently we had the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, that went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court declared it constitutional, but also defined the fee that the Obama administration was charging people without insurance as a tax. Why is that significant? Well, there is a conservative legal group now that has sued, saying that if indeed this is a tax, it would make the whole Obamacare or Affordable Care Act law unconstitutional because in fact it began in the Senate. And we'll see if this actually makes it back to the Supreme Court, but certainly that is maybe splitting hairs constitutionally, but it is something that needs to be looked at. Other significant powers the House has are to raise impeachment on officials like the president. You also see that there's a lot more party loyalty and party line voting, meaning there's a lot greater sense of spirit, I guess you could say, to use like a high school example, where your party is going to stick together and vote together, whereas in the Senate they're more, I guess, mature or wise, and they know how to compromise and get things done. They also have a very powerful committee in the House of Representatives called the Rules Committee, and they're the ones that get to determine how much time will be spent debating and what amendments are allowed or not allowed on bills. So they can really kill or help a bill survive from the very beginning. Whereas the House gets to raise impeachment trials, the Senate are actually the folks that get to try the impeachment. So once it's been raised, they determine to the extent to which the official, like the president, is going to have to be censured or leave office or whatnot. They also have a very important job of ratifying treaties that are made by the president, and also of confirming anybody that the president would have to be an official like a Supreme Court judge. And we'll also see a very unique but well-known power that the Senate has, and some think it's not a very reasonable power, which is the filibuster. And what this basically means is that any senator can waste time, stand up and read the Constitution, read the Bible for hours or days on end with the sole purpose of postponing a vote and basically breaking the other side down. And it takes quite a bit, 2/3 vote, to actually change this rule in the event that it starts. There you can see some historic examples of that. I'll show you now another example, fictional, and it's from a movie called Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Mr. Smith, played by Jimmy Stewart. He's a rookie congressman, and he's kind of learning the ways of the Senate, and he realizes quickly that he can actually postpone a vote on a bill which he thinks is completely corrupt by doing the filibuster. So you'll see first he kind of goes off on a rant, and eventually he signifies by pulling out his canteen and his Bible and whatnot that he's going to start a filibuster, and they're going to be there a while.
Well, I guess the gentlemen are in a pretty tall hurry to get me out of here. The way the evidence is piled up against me, I can't say I blame them much. And I'm quite willing to go, sir, when they voted that way. But before that happens, I've got a few things I want to say to this body. I tried to say them once before, and I got stopped colder than a mackerel. Well, I like to get them said this time, sir. And as a matter of fact, I'm not going to leave this body until I do get them said.
President, will the senator yield? The senator yield?
No, sir, I'm afraid not. No, sir. I yielded the floor once before, if you can remember, and I was practically never heard of again. No, sir. And we might as well all get together on this yielding business right off the bat now. Now, I had some pretty good coaching last night, and I find that if I yield only for a question or a point of order or a personal privilege, that I can hold this floor almost until doomsday. In other words, I've got a piece to speak. And blow hot or cold, I'm going to speak.
Order. Order, gentlemen.
Mr. President, I stand guilty as framed because Section 40 is graft. And I was ready to say so. I was ready to tell you that a certain man in my state, a Mr. James Taylor, wanted to put through this dam for his own profit. A man who controls a political machine and controls everything else worth controlling in my state. Yes, and a man even powerful enough to control congressmen. And I saw 3 of them in his room the day I went up to see him.
Will the senator yield?
No, sir, I will not yield. And this same man, Mr. James Taylor, came down here and offered me a seat in this Senate for the next 20 years if I voted for a dam that he knew and I knew was a fraud. But if I dared to open my mouth against that dam, he promised to break me in two. All right, I got up here and I started to open my mouth, and the long and powerful arm of Mr. James Taylor reached into this sacred chamber and grabbed me by the scruff of the neck.
Mr. President, he is trying to blackmail this Senate as he tried to blackmail me. To prevent his expulsion, he will probably even try to hold up this deficiency bill, vital to the whole country, which must be passed immediately, today.
Have I the floor?
Gentlemen, I have lost all patience with his brazen character. I apologize to this body for his appointment. I regret I ever knew him. I'm sick and tired of this contemptible young man, and I refuse to stay here and listen to him any longer. I hope every member of this body feels as I do.
Get off the floor! Gentlemen, please address the chair.
Are we going to keep relief from the country?
The people of my state need permanent relief from crooked men riding their backs.
Mr. President, if the Senate yields to this sort of blackmail at this time from this man, it'll become a laughingstock.
It is an insult to this body to have to listen. An insult to our colleague, Senator Payne. I, for one, will follow the Senator's example and refuse to remain in this chamber as long as that man holds the floor.
Order, gentlemen.
All right, sir, I guess I'll just have to speak to the people of my state from right here. And I'll tell you one thing, that wild horses aren't going to drag me off this floor until those people have heard everything I've got to say, even if it takes all winter.
This is H.V. Kaltenborn speaking. Half of official Washington is here to see democracy's finest show, the filibuster. The right to talk your head off. The American privilege of free speech in its most dramatic form. The least man in that chamber, once he gets and holds that floor by the rules, can hold it and talk as long as he can stand on his feet, providing always, first, that he does not sit down, second, that he does not leave the chamber or stop talking. The galleries are packed. In the diplomatic gallery are the envoys of 2 dictator powers. They have come here to see what they can't see at home. Democracy in action.
Greatest movie of all time. Now let's get to this business of committees. Within each house of the Congress, there's a need to kind of hammer out little finer points of bills. After all, nobody has time to sit there and argue about every little jot and tittle. Therefore, the committees are assigned to do so and then bring a bill to the whole House or Senate floor to be able to debate it and vote it at that point. So they're doing the dirty work, so to speak. Standing committees exist in the House and the Senate, such as the Finance Committee or the Intelligence Committee, to be able to get information and hammer things out. And then they have joint committees, which is where the House and the Senate will come together to make sure that the bills that are passed in each House and Senate make sense or are congruent. Those joint committees usually meet before bills are passed. Now, what if a bill is passed in the House and one in the Senate, but they are still not congruent and won't work together, it won't be signed by the President? You can then call a conference committee after the bills have already passed to kind of do some amendments to make the bill ready for the President. And occasionally the President will call together a special committee called the Select Committee, or recently we heard it called the Super Committee, to handle really important issues that kind of have a quick deadline. The last one was the need to raise the debt ceiling and try to bring down the deficit. And they did so with the stipulation that in January of 2013, if something wasn't to be done to deal with the budget more succinctly, there would be some drastic cuts, and those are planned to take place very soon. So we're hoping that after the election is decided, whomever the new leader will be will start working with Congress to hammer out the details before we face another fiscal cliff, as it's called. Here's a list of some of the committees you will see in the House and the Senate right now. Another group you're going to have to know about are caucuses. So these are not formal. These are more like clubs you'd see on campus. You know, you don't get credit for it. You have to meet after school or at lunch. But they still have a good purpose, which is for people in the Congress with similar interests. They will be able to plan out how they're going to vote on certain issues. And these don't always fall on party lines. In some cases, they fall based on ethnicity, such as the Congressional Black Caucus, the CBC, which is one of the largest and most influential caucuses. They tend to decide on issues they want to vote similarly about because they might apply more to their African American heritage or community around the country. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. We're going to learn a little bit more about how a bill becomes a law in class. We'll watch the entirety of that fun video. And of course, we're going to put this into practice when you guys as congressmen are going to actually go through the motions, so to speak. But basically, this is a bill, which is an idea someone has that they write up in a nice formal way. It can either start in the House or the Senate, unless of course it's revenue raising, then it starts in the House only. Then it has to go through committees where they hammer out the details, and then on to the floor of the House or the Senate, respectively, for some debate. And possibly after that, have to go into committee again, maybe a conference committee to, again, hammer out differences between the bills that exist in the House or the Senate, because they have to be congruent, or else they won't be signed by the president if there are too many differences. The House and Senate, after the committees have hammered out differences, are then going to vote independently of one another. And if the bill passes both the House and the Senate, on to the president's desk it goes for him to sign or veto. Of course, most bills don't make it as far as the president's desk. They often die in committee because differences can't be hammered out, as is the case in this Family Guy adaptation of the famous Schoolhouse Rock video.
They call me Bill, yes they call me Bill, and I'm standing here on Capitol. Oh!